G'day and welcome to Procurement Uncovered episode 002. My name is Chris Wozniak, Managing Director of Procurement and Contracts Division, and today I'm joined by Sharon Melamed, Managing Director of Matchboard. Sharon, are you ready to procure?
I am ready and waiting.
Excellent, well let's get into it. So as you would have heard in the opening, I'm joined today by Sharon Melamed, who is the Managing Director of Matchboard. Sharon is an entrepreneur with 25 years experience in business process outsourcing. In 2012, she founded Matchboard with a vision to make it easier and faster for companies to find quality suppliers that match their exact criteria. Matchboard is a free online matching platform operating in Australia and the UK, specialising in the supply chain around sales, service and back office. Through Matchboard, Sharon has helped some 2,000 companies with trusted supplier recommendations for services such as outsourcing, consulting, technology, training, data, and digital. In 2013, LinkedIn awarded Sharon Power Profile status for having one of the 50 most visited profiles within Australia. That's pretty impressive. Sharon holds a double honours degree and university medal from the University of Sydney and speaks an impressive 5 languages. And I'll finish off this guest introduction with a testimonial that I pulled from the Matchboard website from a common user. Quote, Matchboard is a unique tool to help businesses make smarter procurement decisions. Companies typically spend a significant amount of time researching and shortlisting vendors. Matchboard now does that for you. Quote unquote from Smart Salary. Now the topic that Sharon and I will be covering today is named Finding Your Perfect Match with Matchboard. And it specifically delves into how Matchboard can assist procurement folk to find their perfect supplier match. And if we look at this from a category level, we're talking about consultants. So whether you're 20 plus years within your procurement career or whether you are brand new to the profession or somewhere in between, you're going to come across the need to procure for consultants at one point or another. Now there's no one size fits all because there's so many variables at play like licenses, what sort of level of risk, insurances, whatever the case may be. However, the general concept of outsourcing to consultants is that you're looking to procure an outcome. However, in getting there, it's kind of a grey road. You know, do I use a common use arrangement? Do I use a standing offer arrangement? Do I just go to Google and type in, what the outsource need is and figure it out from there? I've been guilty of that before. Whether it's the best and right approach is questionable. However, there may be other ways to find a value for money outcome. But generally from a procurement perspective, what I look at is 4 rights to the right way to procure. And it might sound a little bit cheesy, but I look at the right knowledge fit and whether they have the right skills to meet that need that we're outsourcing. And then I look at the right approach and whether they do have the right approach to the desired outcome or the right methodology. But after that, I then look at, the right personal fit. Can they fit in within my team? Because chances are they may be embedded for periods of time. And the last one is generally, are they right for the budget? And if they are right for the budget and they tick the first 3 boxes, it tends to be pretty well straightforward from there. However, there are different scenarios at play when it comes to different categories of consultants. So Sharon, with all that in mind, tell us, how did Matchboard come to fruition?
Yeah, sure. Well, I founded Matchboard in 2012. And the rationale was I wanted to solve a business problem, which is as follows. Basically, the majority of people, when they procure new suppliers for their business, they go online and they enter a few keywords on Google and they get back hundreds of thousands of search results. And what they find is that often the companies on page 1 of Google are just the ones that have the best SEO strategy and are not necessarily relevant or reputable at all. And so we solve that problem by providing a free online platform where people can enter not keywords, but rather their complete business needs via a questionnaire. And the matching algorithms then match that to a short list of suppliers that meet their needs. So it really came from a problem that I perceived going on in all businesses all around the world. And I call that problem the search engine blues, where people just get overwhelmed and depressed sifting through page after page of results. So essentially, we offer that cure to the search engine blues, if you like.
Excellent. And I think for all procurement professionals out there listening, the power of Google, it's a beautiful thing. But in some instances, you know what? It's just diabolical in terms of what Google does bring back. Because you're right, SEO strategies, marketing, all that sort of stuff comes into play. So how do you know that you're getting the best supplier that you're looking up on Google?
Yeah, exactly.
With that in mind, the procurement folk that are listening today, Sharon, for their benefit, what is the functionality, or how is it driven? What's the back end? What does it all look like?
Well, one of our guiding principles is simplicity. So I don't want to overcook this. It is a very simple process involving 3 steps. First of all, going to our website, matchboard.com.au, picking a product or service category that you're looking for, answering some questions about your needs for that particular product or service, and then getting matched. You don't actually have to set up an account. It's purely transactional. You hop online, enter your need when you have one, and once your need is in our system, you get matched with suppliers within 24 hours in 99% of cases. And the suppliers will contact you, so you don't really have to make much effort except wait to hear from your perfect matches. So it is quite a simple process, and Matchboard steps out of the picture at that point and leaves the buyer and the suppliers to engage with each other directly, which is a big difference between other platforms out there that like to stay in the middle, and we see no value in doing that.
Interesting. Now, you mentioned needs. So what does that look like? Is that like a click box, or is it a free text? How do the procurement folk utilise that
Sure.
sort of functionality?
Yeah. Well, we ask people up to 10 filtering questions, which are exactly in that multiple choice style of database question. So we ask things like, what are the services that you're looking for? What budget do you have? Which location does the supplier need to be in? What industry expertise do they need? What's your timeline? And various other questions which narrow down the field of the perfect supplier. So it is database driven. Everything that you enter has a mirror question, if you like, on the back end of our platform, where the suppliers say, these are the services we offer, these are the industries we specialize in, etc. So then the matching software can link up the two sides of the market and actually score the best matches.
Interesting. So it's sort of like a predictive slash, it's already been preset in terms of, what the follow-on question is. Is that right?
Yes, there are some dependencies. So if you answer one question in a particular way, then you might be prompted with a different question next. So there is some smarts to it, but we're constantly enhancing that. And based on customer feedback, introducing new questions or new wording which help refine the process even further.
24 hours matching, is that an automated sort of back end, or is it someone driving it? How does the matches come about?
It is a high-tech service in the sense that the matching algorithms automate the scoring of the matches. However, in this sort of business-to-business platform, I truly believe that it cannot ever be 100% automated. And you do need that human overlay to quality check the inputs and the outputs from the software before putting the two parties together. So in addition to the various multiple choice questions I mentioned, there is one free form text box which absolutely needs to be reviewed by a human being, and that's the buyer's opportunity to explain in words anything that was not captured in those multiple choice questions, and that will absolutely be read by someone who's not a robot and will be interpreted with human smarts, and only then will the lead, as we call it, be released to the suppliers to follow up. And that also weeds out from the supplier's perspective any companies who may just be testing out the system or mucking around and don't have an authentic requirement. We certainly don't want to match those sorts of opportunities and waste our suppliers' valuable time.
We spoke briefly about supplier matching and how quick and easy it is, and some things that come to mind are things like market research. Have you seen that work in some procurement folks or people that have utilised the software to date?
Yeah, yeah,
And what other things can it do, like reducing risk and tendering processes?
of course. So access to knowledge of the supplier landscape is absolutely a value add we can offer. Bearing in mind, Matchboard specializes in a niche, and that niche is everything around sales, service, and back office. So we have an intimate knowledge of that niche and the supplier landscape that goes with it, such that if a procurement manager decides to put a request on our platform but wants really some additional insights, almost a sort of a telephone consultation to learn more, we're absolutely happy to do that at no cost. So
Great.
essentially, that can be a little note they put in the freeform text box on their request. Please call me to discuss further. In addition to those free value-added consultations, we also have a huge library of articles and white papers on our website about the supply chain for sales, service, and back office, and all the offerings around that. If, and this does happen occasionally, a buyer wants a really premium service, perhaps they want some in-depth market insights, perhaps face-to-face or perhaps via a bespoke written report, then we do have a premium service that we charge for. But essentially, just getting advice on the phone and tapping into our thought leadership papers on our website is all free, in addition to the
Great.
online matching.
The procurement folk are looking at reducing risk. Now, Matchboard, is there some certain elements of Matchboard actually checking the suppliers that are on there first?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's actually one of our key competitive differentiators. So if you go online on Google or you go on LinkedIn or any other online platform for that matter, these platforms are too mass market to take an approach of reference checking and doing due diligence on the suppliers that are appearing on their platforms. We are niche enough and focused enough to be able to offer that service. So in order for a supplier to become part of our ecosystem, they have to go through some gates. And the first one is that we need to speak to 2 of their clients. If those clients either don't respond to our request for a reference or do not highly rate those suppliers, they won't even make it into our ecosystem. So right there, we cut out some players in the market who simply don't make the cut. In addition to reference checking, we also, for something like technology, we do demos to actually see the product for ourselves. For something like a contact center, we might actually do a physical site visit, and we do online reference checks and checking online media reviews of any suppliers that we're dealing with.
And that's all done before the procurement folk actually utilise Matchboard and seek their perfect supplier.
That is correct. So
wow.
In that sense, we really are reducing the risk of procurement folk, particularly if they have an urgent need and they don't have time to go through some of the processes we've already gone through. That's a real advantage. What we don't say we offer is financial due diligence. And we certainly recommend that once we make a match that the procurement managers do their own due diligence as well. But I think that double layer from our side and from theirs absolutely mitigates the risk of a poor experience.
Yeah, definitely. And it sort of acts like a double check mechanism, for one of a better term. And I think that'll be, something worthwhile for the procurement folk and the listeners that are out there to have a look to see how it could be incorporated into your procurement system. Sharon, success stories. Everyone has success stories about people that have gotten it right. What about for Matchboard? Do you have a success story where one of your procurement folk or managers that have used Matchboard that are out there who have gotten it right by using Matchboard?
Yeah. Look, we have many success stories, but I guess one I could point to is an organisation that's used our service more than 20 times. They're a large government-funded emergency services organisation. And they provide a mission-critical service to the public through a call centre, social media, SMS, and their website. So being an emergency organization, they have lots of needs that just pop up and need immediate actioning. So examples of things they came to us for were they needed a consultant to rewrite their disaster recovery plan based on a bad experience of not having a good one in place. They needed a consultant to assess the cost of different service delivery models, and then another one to benchmark their service against their peers. Then they needed a technology vendor to stress test their call center in the case of a call avalanche. So that at one point we were getting so many requests through them, I thought of setting up a dedicated hotline. But they used Matchboard in a smart way, because not only did they just enter their requests online, they took advantage of our free telephone consultation. They provided us information about their challenges, and we were actually able to assist them in defining their requirements for an ideal supplier further. And the feedback I got from them is that our service saved them hours of work with each request they put through and delivered the outcomes.
Just out of curiosity, the 3 or 4, however many requests that came through from them to get this disaster recovery plan and push test the idea and the systems in place, were they 3, 4 different suppliers each time?
Yes. Being a government-backed organisation, they actually had a requirement for a minimum of 3 quotations for every sort of RFQ that was coming through. So we were able to meet that requirement and provide them anywhere from 3 to 5 options each time.
Wow. It certainly seems like a very diverse system, and certainly one that I recommend that the suppliers and government folk have a look at to see whether this could be potentially an option to incorporate into your procurement sort of processes. Now, Sharon, I've got one last question to ask.
Sure.
Are you ready to enter the Procurement Hotseat?
Oh, I'm ready and waiting. I can't wait for this moment.
Excellent. Just to give the listeners a bit of advice or a bit of a heads up what the Procurement Hotseat's all about, it's for you. 1 week prior to our podcasting recording, you will see via social media, whether it be Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever the case, wherever you've seen it, you will see us calling for questions for our podcast. And this week, we have received many. I think we've received 8 and a couple of funny ones, which, it certainly lights the mood, and one I'll throw in there. Now, in terms of the rules of the hot seat, our guest speakers, they have 2 minutes on the hot seat to answer between 3 to 5 questions, whatever we determine. A special mention to Ravi, Michael and Jay, who threw these questions our way for the Procurement Hot Seat today. So without further ado, Sharon, are you ready?
Yes, bring it on.
Excellent. All right. Question 1. Finding the perfect supplier for our business is not very easy. The suppliers we tend to purchase or partner with are within the IT consulting industry. Can you advise of 3 value tips for us?
Excellent question. Well, most people think IT consulting is about the technical skill sets of the consultant. Obviously, technical skill sets are a given. My first tip would be that consulting is all about people, and consultants need good people skills because they have to engage with your people and understand their problems and work collaboratively. So I'd say if you have a short list of consultants through Matchboard or someone else, I'd narrow it down based on good people skills, and I'd approach the first meeting with a consultant just as if you're on the first date, sussing them out and determining if you have that chemistry and those common values. Another tip would be to check out the consultant's website and their LinkedIn, because you've got to be confident that they come across as an expert in writing as well as pitching in person. And more than that, is their online presence in very good English? Because one of the biggest complaints about consultants I hear is the quality of English in written reports. So you need to screen this out.
Question 2. My difficulty is usually cracking the egg or trying to find my way into larger corporations' supply chain. Other than persistence, do you have any other suggestions or secret tips on getting into corporations and even government?
Okay. Yeah. Before Matchboard, I definitely sat on the other side of the fence, so I can talk to this. I would say most procurement managers view cold calling as an unwelcome interruption, and persistent cold calling is even worse. So a piece of advice I got from a head of procurement at Westpac once is interact first, sell second. And you can interact through sharing valuable content, social media engagement, that sort of thing. The other point I would give is that recommendations or referrals are often the best way in the door of a procurement manager. So check out your LinkedIn network to see who knows who.
Interact first and sell last. That is a very powerful message. Very powerful message. And certainly one that the suppliers that are out there can listen to and learn from. Because, when I was sitting in the procurement seat myself, many organisations, we had 2,500 odd suppliers in our database that we had to manage at any given time. And usually we'd only have 3 to 4, 5 if we're lucky, procurement folk in our department. So, sometimes it takes the organisation to be ready to procure or go out and find it. But, sometimes it may be worthwhile to just be persistent in terms of, maybe emailing once a while. But definitely, Sharon, I think that's a very powerful message. Interact first and sell last. Question 3. What happens if we hire a supplier through Matchboard and they turn out to be a poor supplier?
Well, definitely if we recommend a poor supplier, it reflects poorly on us too. So we do everything in our power to avoid that happening. But if it happens, and occasionally it will, we obviously take on board that feedback, and we have a mechanism in our matching algorithms to downgrade suppliers who get that negative feedback, and we investigate it. I would say to mitigate that risk, a buyer has to make their own full assessment of a supplier that we match them with, and we can't control things like cultural fit or pricing competitiveness. So it's really up to the procurement managers to do what you said is that double check assessment and conduct that deep screening process of suppliers before making a selection.
And the final question, Sharon, I think is a bit of a cracker and someone taking the mickey out of this, but I'll ask it anyway. Is your favourite colour brown?
Actually, it's not. It's green. And I'm sure many listeners have a green policy in their businesses too. So effectively, we all love green, right? Excellent. All right. So, look, you went a bit over time, Sharon, with the Procurement Hotseat, but you know what? I think you did a fantastic job, and you are now on the honorary list of Procurement Hotseat extraordinaires. Oh, thank you very much. It's been an honour.
Excellent. Now, in closing, Sharon, can you give our listeners just one last piece of advice and the best way that they can contact you?
Absolutely. I am very big on LinkedIn, so please don't be shy. Reach out to me, Sharon Melamed, and I should come up first, and I will guarantee accept all procurement managers' requests for connection. But just check out the matchboard.com.au website. It is free. There are no catches, there are no barriers, and I would sincerely love to add value to the listeners' businesses out there and help them in any way with their procurement for sales, service and back office solutions.
Great, and I think that's a very powerful message, and certainly one that the procurement folks should check out is matchboard.com.au. And if you want to contact Sharon any other way, check out our guest speaker page where Sharon will be featured, and all of her accounts, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and her direct email will be there. But in closing, listeners, I'd like you to consider your specific challenges. The challenges in the area of procuring consultants. Sometimes it may be beneficial to utilise a common use arrangement or a standing offer arrangement, but in other times, if you've got time to plan these sort of procurements, you may just get a better value for money outcome if you utilise a service like Matchboard. Sharon, thank you for joining me on Procurement Uncovered.
It was an absolute pleasure, Chris. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So wherever you've picked this podcast up from via the social media channels, if you enjoyed this podcast today, let us know. Throw in the comments section what you enjoyed about it, but also your insights and what you've taken away from today's podcast. And if there's any other follow-on questions. As suggested before, you can contact Sharon directly via the podcast special guest page where she is featured and all of her contact details are there. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in today. This is Chris Wozniak, your host of Procurement Uncovered. Bye for now.